Item 4.2, our broadcast statement, which will be read by student member Ang Olson.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, October 20th at 6 p.m. and Monday, October 21st at noon, and also webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. We welcome members of the audience to address the board. Please complete a speaker form located in the back of the community room and give them to our communications representative along with any handouts you may have for the board prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comment to items that are not on the agenda. If you do comment on an item that is on the agenda, we will ask that you please defer your comments until your item comes up on the agenda. Please also turn off your cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate.
Thank you, Board Member Ang Olson. Item 4.3, our stellar student recognition. Tonight's stellar student recognition will be of me, Bella Gamage, a student at Albert Einstein Middle School. We know that she's here with one of her teachers this evening. This evening's presentation and certificate will be put forward by Board Member Pritchett.
Can I get my Bella to come to the microphone? And is your last name pronounced Gamage? Okay, I want to make sure I got it right. All right. My Bella Gamage is an 8th grader at Albert Einstein Middle School. She is the ASB president. She is a 4.0 student and takes all GATE classes along with leadership. My Bella is a very talented leader. Along with being the student representative on the school site council, my Bella took her role as president very seriously. She is kind and caring and works hard to make sure that all student voices are heard and represented. Earlier this month, my Bella and 3 of her classmates attended the California Association of Student Leaders Conference in Woodland. This inspired my Bella and her team to create the #GetInvolved campaign to encourage all students to get involved in their classroom, attend school every day, and participate in school activities and events on campus. My Bella was very influential in creating Einstein Middle School's leadership mission statement, which states, "Our mission in leadership is to inspire all students to achieve personal excellence and actively contribute to a positive school environment." It is my Bella's outstanding character, great work ethic, and determination to make positive changes within her school and community, which defines her as an Albert Einstein School stellar student. Can we please give her a round of applause? Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, please. Good evening, Board President Ryan, Superintendent, and board members. I am extremely grateful to be receiving such an important award. I am earnestly grateful for recognition I have received for my hard work. I have faced several challenges to get where I am today, but I am thankful to all the people that helped me persevere and strengthen me to become the person I am today. I especially want to give a shout out to the CASL program because winning this award would not have been possible without the inspiration I have received from the students and the teachers from this conference. They taught me all of the traits I should possess to become the leader I am now, such as the main purpose of a leader is to support others. CASL is all about helping others become amazing and natural leaders, and by me going to that conference, it helped me transform into a leader, not just within my school campus, but also within our community. But I also want to sincerely thank each and every person who encouraged me to never give up and who helped me reach this stage where I can proudly hold up this award as a mark of my achievements. The Council Conference was an overall amazing conference, and I encourage others to look more into it. Thank you.
And do we want to get a picture with her parents, her teacher, and her principal?
We absolutely do.
He says no.
Come on up. Nicole and the parents. Come on. You want to scoot on in here? Congratulations.
Pin?
Item 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
Yes, Madam President, I have two announcements out of closed session. The first announcement is with regard to expulsion number 2, 2018-19, by a vote of 6-0 with Board President Ryan absent, approved a conditional readmission with staff recommendations as approved by the board. My second announcement out of closed session is that the board, by a similar vote, 6-0, with Board President Ryan absent, approved a settlement agreement regarding a special education matter identified as OEH case number 2019-041032. That concludes, Madam President, all of the announcements out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Behrens. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. Do we have a motion? At student preferential vote? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 7.0, special presentations. 7.1, approve resolution number 3109, recognition of National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This evening, Board Member Pritchett will be presenting this resolution, and I also will be saying a few words.
Perfect. Thank you, President Ryan. I almost called you President Jesse. It is my pleasure to introduce Resolution 3109, and if we can have Ms. Cecile Nunley come to the podium, I really want to appreciate her bringing this to our attention and making sure that we got this on the calendar during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. As we know, there's many of us and loved ones that are survivors and have lost their lives because of breast cancer. So I think that for us to pass this and knowing the education and early detection of breast cancer is very important for our students to know. And before I read this, I read through this and I think, there was one thing missing out of this resolution, which I think is a perfect resolution, but, we talk a lot about women who have breast cancer. And I think it's important to note that men die of breast cancer every day.
Yes.
And they need to be aware of early detection and the education as well. So, all right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so whereas breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in women and the second leading cause of cancer death among women. And a woman living in the U.S. has a 12.4% or 1 in 8 lifetime risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer. The survival rate of women who have breast cancer is 98.1 when detected in early stages. Knowing the risk factors for breast cancer, which can include age, weight, sedentary lifestyles, diet, family history, reproductive history, alcohol consumption levels, smoking, and dense breast tissue, can aid in early detection. The Sacramento City School District applauds the local and national organizations for their work in promoting awareness about breast cancer. And the resolution provides a special opportunity to offer education and the importance of knowing the risk factors, monthly examinations, self-examinations, and annual mammograms. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education encourages encourages awareness to all females within the surrounding community and the importance to partake in a monthly breast self-examination and annual mammograms. And be it further resolved, the Sacramento City Unified School District and the Board of Education would like to pay tribute to those individuals and their families and friends who have had to struggle with the battle against breast cancer and any other cancer. And before we do a vote, I know, these kinds of resolutions are near and dear to many of us. And both, President Ryan and I both lost our mothers to cancer. So I appreciate you one more time bringing this, and I think it's important.
All right, thank you.
And
Is it-
before we pass, do you want to take a vote first, or? do you
Yes.
wanna-
Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
I will move to pass this resolution.
Student preferential vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion
All
carries.
right, if it's okay, thank you
please,
so much.
please.
I did want
Words.
to add, because sometimes people say, well, you are recognizing Breast Cancer Awareness Month. What about all the other cancers, which you so eloquently talked about? It's not that there are not those others. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer myself, the surgeon was in charge of my case. I had the oncologist for the infusions of the chemotherapy. I had the radiation and the surgeon who actually specialized in brain surgery or brain cancer. And I asked him, why are you taking my case? He says it's so prevalent, every single surgeon has to take some breast cancer cases. It's that prevalent, and it's one of those that is very critical. I also applaud you in the resolution, and thank you so much for talking about education, because education and prevention is the cornerstone of us finding a cure. So thank you so much, Board. I really do appreciate all of you for taking the time.
Board Member Morowski, followed by Vice President Wu.
Thank you. Thank you to Ms. Nunley and to my fellow board members for bringing this forward. Breast cancer is one of those things that affects all of us. I did want to acknowledge that I also lost my mother to breast cancer before the age of 2. So losing, a lot that I don't even know what I lost. It's been such a hole. So it's incredible that we have treatment now that can address even aggressive forms of breast cancer. So just wanted to recognize that. And also, on a more technical note, in the resolution itself, it references annual mammograms. These guidelines are and evidence around breast cancer are always changing. So I just wanted to, and as we're talking about awareness, raise that it's important to check with your own doctor as to the most recent guidelines. It may or may not be annual mammograms.
Thank you.
Vice President Wu.
Thank you. And I would urge early detection. Early detection is the most important for getting to it. So I urge it. It saved my wife. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice President Wu. We are so proud to adopt this resolution.
All right, thank
Congratulations. I love your breast cancer awareness.
I love it.
And the pink.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to our next resolution, item 7.2, resolution number 3110. If I can have Jessica Wharton, our anti-bullying prevention specialist, come up. As many of you know, October is National Bullying Prevention Month. I had the opportunity to participate yesterday in Stand Up, Speak Out, and I am proudly wearing my Stand Up, Speak Out t-shirt under my suit this evening. It was a beautiful event held at the California Museum Unity Center where hundreds of students from throughout Sacramento and beyond came to talk about bullying, inclusion, and how we can lift up together a community of kindness and support. Please, Jessica.
Thank you, and thank you for your participation yesterday. Good evening, Superintendent Aguilar, Board President Ryan, and board members. My name is Jessica Wharton, and I am the Bullying Prevention Specialist for the district, and I will be presenting the resolution tonight. I will not be reading the resolution, but rather presenting the reason why we need the resolution. In Sac City, we support the right of students and staff to attend schools that are safe and free from violence, harassment, bullying, and discrimination. Therefore, this resolution is to highlight National Bullying Prevention Month, a campaign held during the month of October that unites communities nationwide to educate and raise awareness of bullying prevention. In Sac City, this includes activities, education, and awareness building for the entire month and throughout the year. And some of these efforts include anti-bullying curriculum that really focuses on kindness and respect and empathy and inclusion, trainings that focus on bullying prevention, cyberbullying, the dangers of social media to administrators, school staff, and parents. An excellent resource page that has now been listed on our school climate and bullying prevention webpage. As Board President Ryan spoke out, our annual Stand Up, Speak Out Bullying Rally, sponsored by OCA, held at the Unity Center, was yesterday. Very well attended. It's our 7th annual here with Sac City, and Sac City and 3 other participating districts got to attend with over 200 youth and learn about kindness, respect, inclusion, and treating each other. And very proud that our board president spoke as well with a very heartfelt message about how to treat others. On October 14th, United Healthcare is going to be providing an event at Rosa Parks. And this is going to be called National Block It Out Day, an initiative that is part of Stomp Out Bullying. This initiative aims to block negativity from our digital lives, and by doing so, help end LGBTQ discrimination, racism, hatred, and online violence. I should mention that this work cannot be done alone. It is accomplished through strong partnerships with staff from our Student Support and Health Services Department, the Behavior Hearing Office, our Social Emotional Learning Department, Youth Development, Special Education. I need to really note excellent community partners and some incredible parent advocates like Benita Ayala and Kenya Martinez. So bottom line, Sac City Unified School District supports the goals of National Bullying Prevention Month and will continue to work with a broad spectrum of local community stakeholders, parents, teachers, staff to develop, implement, and monitor policies and programs that foster and support a positive school climate free from harassment, bullying, and discrimination. So as a result, Sac City Unified School District recognizes this month of October 2019 as National Bullying Prevention Month.
Wonderful. Let's give you a round of applause. Do we have any public comment on these items?
Yes, we do. We have a public comment from Angie Sutherland, Angel Garcia, Noahbuchanan, and Sheila Aragway.
Thank you. Thank you.
Want me to wait here?
Yes, please.
We're all speaking together.
Okay, you're combining your time?
The 3 of us are combining our time,
Okay.
but Angel and I will speak. So
Oh, I
are
see.
Reggie?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll start. Good evening, Superintendent Aguilar, President Ryan, and board members. The Coalition for Students with Disabilities believes that through equity and access that all students can achieve academic, social, and life success. However, we know that bullying creates barriers to equity and access, particularly for students with disabilities, students of color, and LGBTQ students who are in unsafe learning environments. SCUSD students and families need SCUSD's commitment to intentional and specific actions and investments that directly impact climate and culture at school sites. We've appreciated that the current reality of our district's climate was finally acknowledged by district leaders in August. These included known issues such as exclusionary practices affecting students, a lack of district-wide infrastructure, the opt-in culture at sites, uneven practices between sites, and a focus on adults versus students. However, bullying prevention and intervention was not discussed in depth Though bullying is one of the major climate issues at school sites, the lack of focus tells families and students that the district accepts the status quo and intends on continuing to do what isn't working. Bullying Prevention Month and resolutions can create awareness for the larger community, but the community, especially those directly affected, wants to know that the specific actions are and what is the rationale behind them. We understand the SCUSD's budget for bullying only pays for one person's salary and does not allocate any specific resources or much staff time at school sites to support the intentional work. This resolution, though heartfelt, does not even scratch the surface on bullying in SCUSD. Bullying is a systemic issue, and its negativity is impacting the outcomes of our most vulnerable student groups. So why are we asking for more specific actions from the district that will follow the intent of this resolution? Well, there are no numbers connected to the resolution. The data that has been reported over the years is very confusing and unclear, though we have some clear data on climate and culture issues at schools and district-wide. So the data given in 17-18 and 18-19 were reported inconsistently. So to measure the progress, we need the data reported in a manner that would allow for comparison from year to year. So for instance, in 2017-18, it says there were 630 school staff, parents, and community members that were trained in bullying prevention, but there are over 2,000 teachers. All admins receive a 2-hour training every 2 years, and administrators are then expected to go back and do a 1-hour staff training. It says 54 schools utilized an evidence-based program. And, but how are we measuring the impact and outcomes of the program? And 165 reports of suspected bullying were submitted, 607 consultations with administrators, school staff, and parents and guardians, 56 in-person mediations, and then 18-19 kind of reports it a little bit differently. It doesn't include the number of people trained. It does say 365 consultations were provided, 195 students received case management services and supports, and intensive mediations were completed in 51 cases. So in order to measure progress, this information needs to be consistently reported out. And so we suggest that we provide information as to how we are measuring the impact of the training, information as to why some staff, teachers, admin are trained, measure the impact of the train-the-trainer models, provide information about why there are not enough professional development hours in the school year, and a breakdown of the trainings and attendees, a breakdown of the initiatives in the schools, a breakdown especially on the reports of bullying and the types of bullying. So we really need this information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie. Angel?
Okay, I'm going to try to sum up my comments in a minute and a half. So parents say that the response to bullying complaints is inappropriate. Our students are not taken seriously. We need to encourage and take students seriously when they come forward. The School Climate Collaborative is not accessible to parents and families. We want this to be expanded to parents, especially parents of students with disabilities, students of color, and LGBT students. We're not clear if these meetings are open to the public or who are the community partners. We recommend that they be posted. How can we get everyone to talk about school climate, to be involved in planning partnerships, funding opportunities? Our coalition is willing to volunteer to establish more partners. The district needs to track the types of bullying to target prevention and intervention efforts. Really, this is where data comes in. You guys have more information in the packet that we handed out. So currently this information is not being shared. The effects of bullying and those who bully and those being bullied are devastating to our youth, including behavior problems, mental health issues, low self-efficacy, and poor school adjustment. This is extremely concerning as bullying behavior and suicide-related behavior are closely related. Lastly, SCUSD anti-bullying policy in this resolution needs to apply to adults in our district. We also need to call out when adults bully. It's not just students who deserve a safe environment. For example, there have been recent and past incidents when school board members were bullied and harassed, including online, by adults who work for our district and within our district. This must stop immediately. Parents and community members are not happy about this, and it doesn't reflect well on our district. But more importantly, it does not lead by example. We hope to receive follow-up on our above suggestions, which you can find in detail If the district's committed to equity, access, and social justice, we need change sooner rather than later. There is a saying that goes, diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice heard. We ask that decision makers hear us and demand transparency, collect and review the right information to make meaningful choices, and include all stakeholders at hand.
Thank you, Angel.
To be heard.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you to the Coalition for Disabilities. I do want to say I appreciate the comments that were made, and I think they're very consistent. So we have one more? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Noahbuchanan. I actually want to give you some statistics that kids who identify in the LGBTQ community as well as being perceived in the LGBTQ community, 74% of these LGBTQ students are verbally bullied in the past year because of their sexual orientation and 55.2% because of their gender expression. 36% of LGBTQ students were physically bullied, being pushed or shoved in the past year because of their sexual orientation, and 22.7% because of their gender expression. And 49% of LGBTQ students experienced cyberbullying in the past year. But I want to approach you as a parent and an advocate. My son had attended one of your guys' schools last year. My son has ADHD, he has post-traumatic stress, and some concern for schizophrenia. My son came out as gay and I came out as transgender last year. My son thought he felt safe enough to come out, and it was a nightmare for him. It started with my son writing about the transgender community, and his teacher said it's an irrelevant topic to write about. Shortly after, my son was called derogatory names that impacted his mental health. Every day he was threatened physically, and it was to the point my son did not feel safe going to school. It didn't stop there. His teacher took part in robbing this child of an education because he had labeled my son a liar and that his bullies were always right. I sent messages to the principal, and all I got was, he's a young teacher and he didn't know how to deal with parents such as myself. This caused my son to miss a lot of school because he didn't feel safe, and as a parent, it is a nightmare. Every day involved him yelling, screaming, and afraid for his life. Anytime my son reported any incidents involving this other child, he got accused of things that were never proven, and now he is labeled as a trouble child and needs to be segregated from other kids. At the end of May, my son tried to attempt suicide. I begged and pleaded with the school as well with the district to help me to put a stop to this. I got no response from anyone. I did not know and understand why I was not getting any things done. My son has since transferred, but nothing is done with the bullying. I would ask that my son get some form of justice as well as other LGBTQ students.
And if you have your full comments in writing, we would love to also have those. Thank you.
I could do that.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I also request BC on a follow-up on that to make sure?
Board Member Vang, we have a comment from Board Member Pritchett, and then you.
Thank you, President Ryan. It makes me really sad that we have to have a month to call this out. It should be called out 24/7, 12 months a year. As a child, I was bullied tremendously, and I've spoke out publicly on this dais about it, and I've seen my own children being bullied. And now in this new day of social media, we see more and more students being bullied tremendously by social media, by other children that are just sitting behind a telephone or behind a computer without any emotion. And I heard a comment the other day that children that are victims of cyberbullying are 1.9 more times apt to commit suicide. And we know that that's true for just bullying at our schools. We are the adults. We can do better. Board, superintendent, staff, we can do better. We can do more. We don't need a month to say that we are just bringing this out into the open. We need to be looking at this all year. So I really want to appreciate all the parents that were brave enough to come out and speak on this tonight.
Thank you, Board Member Pritchett. Board Member Vang.
Can I have the parent come back up really quick? Just for clarification, when was this? Was it just?
This was last year, the 18-19 school year.
Okay. And you said that you contacted the school district and there was no follow-up?
No.
Okay. I would like to request, I think President Ryan did mention to get your contact information, but I would like to request a BC on a follow-up for that, particularly just the school site and staff, so that I'm aware that there was a direct follow-up on that.
Okay.
Can we do that? Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Vang. I would just like to finally say, I appreciate the Coalition for Students with Disabilities' very clear requests around data collection and how we use that data to ascertain whether or not we're having any impact on the bullying prevention efforts. I do want to just ask Jessica Wharton, as you know, our single bullying prevention specialist, if there's an ability to work with the early intervention and information system to include these indicators is part of the indicators that we're using to make sure that we're meeting a student's needs when in fact we're addressing that they're having issues early on, experiencing bullying, experiencing other inequities.
Yes, in fact, the EIS system that you just referenced, all the reports are being entered into that.
Okay.
And it's even gotten to the point where we're adding a lot more detail for what the referral was for, what type of bullying was occurring, whether it was a report or a consultation with an administrator, whether that report was substantiated or unsubstantiated, and then the follow-up that has occurred. So that detail, and then I would like to just address the trainings.
Yes.
The trainings, when provided as a report, shows how many, but we actually have it tracked down by exactly what staff have gotten trained, whether they're administrators, school staff, or parents, and what schools have participated. And I'd be happy to provide that data.
Thank you. Board Member Pritchett?
Sorry, I just have one other question on that point. Are we also tracking the online bullying? Because I know for a long time, we weren't tracking that, and our school district didn't know how to handle the online bullying.
Every report that comes in gets entered into EIS, and in this case, it would be classified as cyberbullying.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So a final comment. Jessica, would it be possible to have a summary report based on the EIS work that you are now doing and ensuring that's being entered moving forward so that our CAC and others have that to have an understanding of how we are meeting the needs of students with disabilities who are being bullied, as we know, at disproportionate rates?
No, absolutely. And currently, our Student Support and Health Services Department does a quarterly report for all services that are provided in that department. So that's something that can easily be provided even on that basis.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your efforts. We're going
Thank
to
you.
bring you this resolution. Do we have a motion and a second? Student preferential vote?
And Board President Ryan, I'm so sorry, are we honoring the two extraordinary parent advocates as well this evening with their work?
Yes, please bring them up.
Oh, where's your sidekick?
Anyway. I just handed in a comment card.
Wonderful, Kenya.
So I listened to, I don't know if everyone can hear me, I listened to Angel and Angie and Noah give the statistics, and I just want to make one thing clear. Bonita and I are actually serving on the Climate Collaborative as parents. So we are communicating with Jessica in the district as far as not forgetting students of color and students with disabilities.
Wonderful.
That's one. Second thing is, in reality, and I'm just going to be very honest and upfront, nothing is going to happen within this district if we don't support the bully prevention specialist. So she's one person, she's doing one job. I don't believe she has a coordinator or a secretary to help her. So, and the other thing that happens is, you guys all know, everyone knows in this room, that each school site is a kingdom unto itself. So there are resources available. I've been in a Climate Collaborative meeting and actually been there with Sacramento Children's Home, Kaiser Permanente, who are all willing to work within this district, but the door isn't being opened at school sites. So until you open the door at school sites, bullying will continue. So I don't want to be up here again. 10-year-olds are, the leading cause of death for 10-year-olds is actually suicide. And we all should be concerned about that. So I am asking, I'm begging on behalf of our students, students of color, students with disabilities, all students in this district, support the bully prevention specialists and make our school sites open the doors. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. And do we have Benita Ayala also coming up to receive the resolution? Wonderful. Moving on to item 8.0, public comment. This is public comment on non-agendized items. Each member of the public will have 2 minutes with no more than 15 minutes on one single topic. And public commenters have the ability to combine their time. Do we have any public comments this evening, Mr. Barrios?
Yes, we have 11 public comments. If you could line up in the order you hear your name called, please. First is Tom McElhenny, followed by David Fisher, Brett Barley, Cecile Nunley, Alison French Tubo, Alina Cervantes, Lorraine Pryor, Angie Sutherland, Angel Garcia, Noah Buchanan, and SCIU.
Please.
Well, good evening, Mr. Superintendent, Madam Ryan, and board members. I'm Tom McElhenny. I'm a Burbank High teacher, and I'm a member of our district's Wellness Committee. I'd like to comment briefly about related ideas in two related ideas in public health: our wellness policy and the recently enacted Late Start Law. Each of these policies that our district now adheres to are in place because people followed the science. With regard to our wellness policy, our Nutrition Services Chief, Diana Flores, has occasion to meet with Nutrition Services directors from all over the state and has mentioned the provisions of our policy to her peers, who have reacted with some amazement. We followed the science, and I thank you, my board, for your conviction that following the science on not rewarding students with food and other vital areas, or ideas, I should say, ultimately teaches lessons well beyond the 12th grade. The implications of our wellness policy are sizable. A wise man once said that changing your eating habits is like grabbing a tiger by the tail. My hero, the UC San Francisco endocrinologist Robert Lustig, suggests that the task of changing our eating habits away from processed foods is as big a job as turning around a battleship. The road will be long. The changes have been and will continue to be met with some disbelief. But the science is on our side. I pledge you my perspective, my encouragement to staff and students, and I pledge to keep a civil tongue in defending our policy. My board, Late Start is now the law of the state. I recall with pride the support of our board member, Mr. Minnick, when I spoke on the subject some years ago. We should delight in addressing the challenges following policies that protect students.
And we will be talking about the impact of the Late Start legislation in the very near future. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, board.
Good evening. David Fisher, President of the Sacramento City Teachers Association, parent of a couple kids in the district. And before we begin, we look forward to working with the district to a smooth implementation of the new law on a late start. On June 6, 2019, we met with Superintendent Aguilar, Board President Ryan, SCOE Superintendent Dave Gordon, and together we met with Superintendent of Public Instruction Tony Thurman. At that meeting, we outlined a proposal to move our district forward to make it a world-class district like our city deserves. By the way, if reports are correct, on Monday, Sacramento could become the newest Major League Soccer franchise. Our city deserves a Major League school system. I think we can all agree with that. So our proposal begins with implementing the already agreed to Article 13 of our contract, using the $11 to $16 million in potential savings on health plan changes to lower class sizes for our students, add more school nurses, psychologists, and supports for all students. We also proposed implicit bias for all certificated staff to set the foundation for a bottom-up restorative practices, consistent with the framework we jointly developed with the Black Pearl School Board. Also, we advocated the need to implement, with full teacher input, a robust intervention program using MTSS as the model. In addition, we had a number of specific ideas on how to boost enrollment by offering high-quality education, together with additional supports to parents like the thousands of state employees and others who live outside the district but work in the city. We have already had preliminary discussion with several elected officials, business leaders, SEIU Local 1000, which represents 100,000 state employees, and others who are generally supportive of the idea. Finally, we'll be working extremely hard to pass the Students and Communities First ballot initiative that will provide long overdue tax reform in California, enabling our state to climb out of the basement when it comes to funding. We'll be exploring all these ideas in the community forum on how to make Sac City a world-class school system on December 12th at the Fruit Ridge Elementary site. Finally, last sentence, we want to acknowledge the 25,000 educators who are on strike in Chicago fighting for a signed enforceable agreement that reduces class sizes and puts more resources into supports for students and directly into the classroom.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Fisher, could you just send us the flyer for that event on December 12th? Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Brett Barley. I am the new superintendent at the California Montessori Project. Our outgoing superintendent, Gary Bowman, retired after 15 years with CMP, and we've been in Sacramento serving kids for almost 20 years now. We're located over in the College Green neighborhood. We have about 330 kids at our K-8 Montessori school. And I know that our district, or our school, has had a great relationship with this district for a long time, and I did not want to get into November without dropping by to say hello, introduce myself, invite you all to come and visit us. We want to continue to have a wonderful relationship with this district and continue to serve kids for another 20 years. So thank you, and it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you very much.
I don't think I said good evening before, so good evening, Board President Ryan, as well as all of the trustees. And it's great to see all of you here. There's just a couple of things. One, I'm noticing this is the second board meeting in October, and I have not seen any attendance or suspension reports. I know that you do have a new CBO, so I'm just wondering about those reports because typically they were presented every single month, and I am interested, obviously, in seeing those every single month. The other thing that I did want to talk to about the board is some of the rhetoric and some of the messaging that has been going on in our district has been really concerning. And it does have the feel of really being elevated to the point of being aggressive, to say the least, if not outright bullying. And it's concerning. I hope that the board will still stay focused because the intent of the board is student achievement. Yes, you do have a fiscal responsibility, but it's also student achievement. And I really encourage the board to stay focused on student achievement and what's best for our kids. And typically with that, one of the most critical items is having stable leadership with our Superintendent Aguilar. So I hope that the board continues to stay focused on the superintendent as he implements the plan around student achievement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nunley.
Good evening. I'm Alison French Tubo, and I'm here as a parent and volunteer. I continue to wait to see all 5 labor partners engaged with district staff and elected officials in solving our long-term structural budget deficit and redesigning our system to achieve equity for all students. I also want to say I expect to start seeing all representatives of labor partners maintaining the behavior standards we expect from our students. Some of you know that you have not been doing that, and I'm ashamed to see that done by adults, much less ones who are paid to represent hardworking employees of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you combining your time?
Yes.
Okay, if we can have a reset of the clock, please, Anne. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Alina Cervantes, and I am a parent in the district. First, I just want to ask the board to stay strong in your commitment to our children and the long-term success of our students and fiscal solvency of our district. It really concerns me that I hear some people saying we're in a fake, phony budget crisis. I don't really have a response to that, but it doesn't seem very realistic. I also want you to put children first in every decision that you make. They are the farthest from justice here, so please have their backs. Second, I want to talk to you about what it means to be an ally. It is not a title that you are given to yourself. You don't get it because you put it on a Facebook page or write it in an op-ed. It's a title you earn through action. It means putting children first in every decision and not treating their rights like bargaining chips. I've spent the last few months trying to be an ally for other parents, especially those who are parents to our most vulnerable children in this district, and what I learned is really upsetting. I learned that we didn't put children first when the illegal and discriminatory language of Appendix D was allowed in the teachers' contracts. The rights of students with disabilities to be included was treated like a bargaining issue. Thank you to the parents who were allies and the board members and district staff who were allies who eventually got its removal. Children were again not put first when a grievance was filed in relation to that appendix and the district's inclusive practices was stopped cold. Children were not put first with an assessment MOU that prevented our district from establishing a process to monitor student progress and prevent early interventions from happening in a timely fashion. Children were not put first when the district agreed to allow SCTA to stop the district's social justice framework called SPARK, which encompassed social emotional learning and restorative practice and included implicit bias training for teachers. I read through pages of teacher feedback on the pilot trainings, and it was everything this anti-bias teacher could ever wish for. I only learned of these issues by listening to parents and trying to be an ally, and I was shocked to learn about all of these things. I'm hoping that we'll have more transparency around issues like this so that parents can be aware when things like this are happening. These are not labor issues. Children's rights should never be negotiable. My own teachers union is currently asking us what we want to prioritize in our own negotiations. And in the list that they sent out to us, it includes things like salary, workload, campus safety, nothing about denying students access to learning initiatives. Do not let this happen anymore. It makes our district ripe for bullying, segregation, disciplinary programs, and of course, lawsuits. We need more transparency, and in closing, people with the most power will be the most upset when allies challenge the power structure. They will try to intimidate you, silence you, and even shame you by calling you names. They will go after you politically and personally, and despite all of that, we need you to be allies. That is the title I believe you're working on hard to earn. You can't just say you have our kids back and magically it becomes true. The title of ally is earned through every decision you make. And to quote SCTA VP Nikki Milevsky, this situation is too critical to stay silent. As education activists, we won't apologize for robustly advocating on behalf of students and families, but let it be real allyship that truly puts our children first in every single decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again, my name is Noahbuchanan and I speak as a parent and advocate. I just wanted to say personally from what I've experienced here in the district, I request that we have strong communication and that there should be more enforced policies for discrimination towards LGBTQ youth as well as other races and cultures and show that, you know, things are not going to be taken lightly when they are discriminated against.
Thank you so much, Noah.
You're very welcome.
Good evening, I'm Angie Sutherland, and I wanted to highlight that there is some wonderful work being done in our state. It's work around inclusive practices, and there are leads from different SELPAs, Sonoma, Imperial, Placer, and Marin County, and they're all working together. And I saw this, and it really hurt me that our district is being stopped from doing that. And we were told in 2010 that all the schools would have this available, so parents don't know where to send their kids. And now we know that it's been halted, and it shouldn't be treated as a bargaining issue, but it is. And this is really, it doesn't make our city a very welcoming place for families of children with disabilities. So I just hope that when you're finally able to sit down and negotiate, that you will refuse to allow these same issues that Alina brought up to be part of the bargaining process because they are not personnel issues. They are learning issues for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland.
Good evening, Board President, Superintendent, Board members. I wanted to flag an issue, a notice that I found in the Principal's Bulletin. Are you guys all familiar with the Principal's Bulletin? Okay. So recently, there was a Principal's Bulletin release that was a change in process for initial evaluations for special education, the assessment process. It said in order to address the systemic compliance issues and improve monitoring and accountability of timelines, the Special Education Department is making some minor, quote unquote, minor changes in the way that assessment plans are processed for initial assessments. Now, it sounds good, right? They're addressing one of the recommendations, right, of timelines going over. However, if you scroll down, it says when a parent requests an assessment for their child, an initial assessment for special education, that should trigger an immediate SST. Now, this is concerning because the SST process in many areas, not just in our area, has been used to stop and have parents rescind their request for an assessment. So it notes if the request for testing is originated from the parent, the site should schedule an immediate SST to gain more information regarding parent concerns and to understand what the parent is seeking out in the testing. If an SST is held, it must be done within the 15-day window. An assessment plan given to the parent on or before the 15th day, that makes sense. If the SST recommends interventions and the parent approves the interventions rather than special education testing, the parent must rescind the request for an assessment in writing in order to stop the timeline. I do not like this. This puts parents on the spot. Parents that have been deep, you don't just assume one day you want an assessment for your child. They've been having these issues for a long time. So I really want the board to figure this out because I hope it's not a way to decrease the amount of special education students that we have here, because that was a request from one of our past board members. This notification is extremely concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Do we
Yield
have,
my time to Carla Fossa.
I'm Caden Kratzer. I yield my time to Carla Fossa.
so we're putting 6 minutes on the agenda, please. Thank you. On the clock, please. Thank you.
Dear President Ryan and Superintendent Aguilar, the district's recent actions have caused us to question its commitment to our union's members and the students that we serve. Therefore, we are withdrawing from our district level labor management coalition activities unless and until the district demonstrates its commitment to treating us and all the unions representing SCUSD employees with the respect that we deserve. Let us remind you that many of our members remain in layoff status, struggling to make ends meet, despite SCUSD and our students' desperate need for their services. We now know that you were aware on March 7th, 2019, that the district's enrollment and revenue projections were, I'm going to say this word wrong, egregiously underestimated. The FIGMAT advisor, Mike Fine, advised explicitly that the board was not in a position to act appropriately, and that the board proceeded to lay off our members anyway without contacting any union official to share this critical information. 3 weeks later, SCOE confirmed what the district already knew, that enrollment was undercounted by 730 students. Clearly, we have very different definitions of partnership. We have worked in coalition for many months to identify health plan options that would allow the district and the employees to continue with comparable benefits while achieving substantial savings. We have engaged with Checker, a nonprofit watchdog which is helping address the problems of healthcare, price gouging plaguing public sector education employers. That work is essentially completed and the conclusion is clear. By moving back into PERS, we can maintain comparable benefits at a savings. That is why we were surprised and disturbed that on September 6th, district representatives advanced a conceptual proposal to drastically cut the family health benefit. That such a concept was even proposed calls into question the district's understanding of cost drivers in healthcare and the destabilizing effects of plan migration. Such a proposal is reckless and an affront to our members, many of whom would be thrust into poverty if such a change were implemented. This proposal should have never been made, but certainly it should not have been made under the manner of collaboration. We remain committed to honest, open dialogue as equals. When SCUSD demonstrates that we are equals, we will be open to resuming district-level labor management activities. In order to demonstrate your commitment to a collaborative and respectful relationship, we propose the following. 1, re-enter PERS Health with the agreement of all union groups. 2, agree to apply savings from SEIU 1021's units to rescinding all the classified cuts, and if savings remain after all the classified layoffs are rescinded, to negotiate how additional savings will be used. 3, agree to honor and renew your 2017 agreement with SCTA to apply their healthcare savings to class size reduction in programs. 4, agree to cease pre-funding of OPED in the proposed budget. We regret that at this late date in 2019, we seem headed toward more conflict rather than uniting to ensure the best education for our students. The responsibility for this state of affairs and the responsibility to correct it falls squarely on your shoulders. We are all counting on you to do so.
Board Member Pritchett has one clarifying question.
Sorry, I just had a clarifying question. You were speaking of a conceptual agreement or a conceptual proposal. I'm assuming that this did not take place during negotiations,
It
correct?
took place at the Labor Management Coalition meeting.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And that was one of the most upsetting things, is that the Labor Management Consortium is not a place for bargaining. Our bargaining team was not there. It was the proposal itself was a non-starter, but to present it to us in a collaborative environment was completely inappropriate.
Has this been brought back up in negotiations? You're not in negotiations. Okay. That was my clarifying question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Fawcett and Mr. Arnold, do you have anything in writing that you would like to share in addition to the? Okay, thank you. Do we have any more public comments at this time?
Yes, we have Lorene Pryor and Benita Ayala.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Benita Ayala. I came to come up today in regards to special education in our district, and I know that you have an issue at hand, which I agree with in some ways, but I don't agree with the people that are actually exercising that issue. So I wanted to come up here first to thank Jessica for her, me having a relationship with her, and also to tell you that I think that only change can happen if you guys choose to change your mindset and how you think about our students. When my son walks into a Sac City campus, which is Burbank, he is a student first. He is not a special ed student. He is not a student with a disability. He is a student. And until you guys can change the mindset across the board and realize that everybody is a student first and deserve that right, you're going to continue to have these lawsuits. And I'll tell you something I've never stated before. The reason why I have not chosen to sue this district myself with my son, who is 17 years old, you don't know if he can read, you don't know if he can write, and when he leaves this district, I don't know what that's going to be like, but I'll be very honest with you. I have worked closely with Becky Bryant in so many manners that she made it possible for a lot of things to happen. But when I tell you it gets at the school site and it falls short, it makes me angry. And so what I do, I blame the teachers union, because some of your teachers choose not to do their job. You know, and it's frustrating when you have the teachers union come up and you want to fight all for these different things. When you guys come up here and make these statements, fight for students. You know what I mean? You fight for the students of why you get a paycheck. And the other thing is, you also need to realize you have a special education department that is running short on some people. And you know what that tells me? That you don't give a damn about our students when she has to fight for other things that she has going on, doing multiple jobs. This is sickening to me. I've been here since my son was 16 and I graduated from this district. And I tell you that this district has failed my student. And if it would not be for Becky Bryant, I would not be suing you myself.
Thank you, Ms. Ayala. Do we have any other public comments on this item? No? Okay. Moving on to item 9.0, public hearings. 9.1, public hearing and approval of resolution number 3108, compliance with the pupil textbook and instructional materials incentive program.
Good evening, Superintendent Aguilar and Board President Ryan and members of the board. My name is Matt Turkey and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, here to inform you about our compliance with the Pupil Textbook and Instructional Materials Incentive Program Act, Ed Code 60119. So the Pupil Textbook and Instructional Materials Incentive Program Act requires a public hearing by the 8th week of school to certify that all students have sufficient textbooks and instructional materials that are consistent with the content and cycles of curriculum frameworks adopted by the State Board of Education in all of the core subject areas, which includes English Language Arts, English Language Development, Math, Science, History, Social Studies, Foreign Languages, and also all of the lab materials required in science lab courses. So the steps which we take to ensure sufficiency. So first of all, in the spring of each year, we survey the sites to see what do they need for the upcoming year after their master schedules have been done. And then at that point, after we have all that information in, we redistribute the surplus textbooks from one school to another and from our warehouse. We order whatever additional materials that we need, and then in September, we verify that every student has the materials that they need. Resolution 3108 certifies that every student has sufficient textbooks and instructional materials in all of the schools. And again, this is for ELA, Math, History, Social Sciences, English Language Development, Science, and also the lab materials for the Science Lab courses. This slide shows that we have 100% sufficiency in our K-6 schools, 100% sufficiency in our grades 7 and 8 schools, and 100% sufficiency in our high schools, grades 9 through 12. The recommendation is to approve the resolution 3108. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to take board member questions at this time. Nathaniel, we have a certain allotted time for all board member questions, correct? Okay, if we can please have Anne set the clock, and we will begin once the clock is reset. Board member Garcia?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, and sorry, before we do that, do we have any public comment on this item, Mr. Barrios?
No public comment.
Okay.
Accordingly, the public hearing was open. No comment. The public hearing is closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Behrens.
All set? Okay, I have just two questions. So the education code requires us to take this action, right? It also directs us as a board to encourage parent participation, community participation. So how do we go about doing that?
In terms of the ensuring that every student has the materials which they need, that is an area which we don't really attend to. In terms of making sure when we go through the choosing the instructional materials, that's absolutely something which we go through. So for example, with the new science adoption, which is coming up, we're absolutely reaching out to the community to have input on those instructional materials. But once the instructional materials have actually been chosen, then it's just our due diligence to make sure that every student has them.
Okay, so the parent participation requirement is only limited to the adoption of textbooks and not to determine sufficiency of textbooks. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then my other question deals with does this recommendation only include like a hard copy of a textbook? I'm trying to wrap my head around textbooks and what they look like. I know that in 5th grade, My daughters are both in 5th grade. It's still, the big textbook that they carry around, but I'm wondering at what point do we talk about ebooks, right? Electronic books. And I don't know if that's a separate conversation, but I sort of wanted to understand.
No, it's a good question. So it's textbooks and instructional materials, okay? So whenever we go through a new adoption for one of the core subjects, so let's say we're going through the new adoption for science at the moment, and the publisher can say, okay, well, these are the student materials. Now, those could come as in textbooks. They could come in, let's say, okay, access to having something online, okay? Or it could come as in there are little student workbooks, okay? Whatever that student material is, that's what we have to provide to every student.
Thank you, Mr. Turkey. Board Member Eng Olson.
Does the 2-minute, the response count against my time?
So was it paused in between? Okay.
Okay.
So
I just have one last clarifying question. So I think as we sort of continue to adopt textbooks and we get into e-textbooks, et cetera, I'm interested to understand what access really means for many of our students, and then keeping in mind the digital divide. How do we ensure they have true access to those textbooks when they're away from a school site? So just something to keep in mind and include maybe in future updates.
Okay.
So thank you.
And my apologies, Board Member Garcia. I needed to make sure that you knew, Mr. Turkey, that what we're going to actually have our board members do is ask you their questions within their allotted time. Then you can respond to the questions in succession. So
Okay, so I would wait until everybody has asked?
you would wait until Member Garcia addresses her 2 or 3 questions, and then you would respond.
Oh, okay.
So just one question about that. How would you respond to questions that come up during the response?
You mean follow-up questions? Yeah, thank you. Student Board Member Eng Olson.
Thank you. In the recommendation page, it says to approve the resolution, 3108. And I'm just wondering, so like this year I'm taking AP Government, and last year I took AP Calculus, and for both classes, at the beginning of the school year, we didn't have these textbooks that were needed for the whole class. And specifically in this year for AP Government, we had to wait several weeks before we got those textbooks. So I think we did abide by, I believe the Pupil Textbook and Instructional Materials Incentive Program Act that required that, all students have it by the 8th week of school. But I would ask that we try to go beyond that standard, that we have them by the 1st week of school, because it really puts students behind when you're getting your textbooks and your instructional materials by the 8th week, because that's basically 2 months into school starting.
Excellent point, Student Member
Agreed.
Eng Olson. Member Morowski.
Thank you. I would like to echo Member Eng Olson's comment that we try to go above the minimum standard. In terms of sufficiency, I just wanted to clarify that sufficiency means that every single student has 100% of the textbooks or instructional materials that they need.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and that's happening by the 8th week.
Well, we have to report on it by the 8th week of school. However, in reality, it usually happens much, much earlier than that. We do have to wait until all of the SCOE visits certain schools, and they do so within the month of September. So by the very end of September, they finish their visits. And so we don't report on this until they've finished all of their verifications. So
Based on a sample, or is this a 100%?
So SCOE visits a sample of schools, okay, and then we require then the principals to say whether they have sufficient materials or not, who then report that to me. So I guess we do our own self-survey.
Of each site?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Board Member Vang.
The button's broken.
No, no.
Oh, no, I'm saying it's lighting up.
Oh, you didn't mean to have it lit up. Okay, sorry. We don't have any questions from Board Member Vang. Okay. So looks like those are all our questions at the time. Thank you, Mr. Turkey.
Okay.
We're going to move from hearing to action. Do we have a motion to take action on this item? Second, student preferential vote. All those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you. Item 10.1, approving the California dashboard local indicators. Update from Kelly Adipo, Ed Aldridge, Sean Alexander, and Vincent Harris. Please go ahead, Mr.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Ryan, board members, and Superintendent Aguilar. My name is Vincent Harris, Chief of Continuous Improvement and Accountability, and joined by several other district leaders to take you through the California local indicators. Tonight is an important milestone for us, and that with your adoption or approval this evening, we meet an important mandated deadline of having these indicators board approved by November 1st. It's important to note that these indicators, unlike the indicators that we'll be speaking to you once the official dashboard is released, are more about reflection, process, and compliance. In many respects, these indicators are things we must do as a system. They tie very closely actually to the prior presentation in terms that we need to assure the state that we've done basic processes. Now, within our presentation this evening, you'll hear some feedback from both our students and our families that we are taking action on in terms of using that as a reflective tool for us. And then ultimately, we're actually going to end the presentation giving you a sense of how, even though this is oriented towards compliance, oriented towards reflection, there actually is an academic through line to this work, in which we'll speak to, and our Chief Academic Officer, Christine Bieda, will drive this point home, how this data actually helps us think about the system and think about fulfilling the promise of the guiding principle. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Adipo.
Good evening. So the slide we're looking at is from the California dashboard, and the California dashboard shows both the state indicator as well as the local indicator. For the state indicators, that data is based on already collected data from the state, and the progress is measured by a color indicator. For the local indicators, the state requires that district measure progress using local information and a self-assessment tool. Instead of a color rating, the progress measured is measured by standard met, standard not met, or standard not met for 2 years. To reach a standard met, the state requires that districts measure status using locally collected data. They also must report the results to the local governing board and also publicly through the California dashboard. By accomplishing these 3 tasks, districts have met the state's criteria.
Good evening. In the next few slides, we will be reviewing the first couple of indicators as part of this board update. The first local indicator is concerned with priority 1 and the LCAP for basic services. These are services designed to be essential for implementing student performance and progress in a consistent systemic way. Information on basic services mirrors information the district submits as part of the school accountability report card. These submissions include information on teacher credentials, student access to standards-aligned instructional materials, and facilities. Based on our most recent Williams site visit information, the district confirmed that all students had access to sufficient instructional materials and that nearly all sites were meeting the good repair rating standard for various parts of their facilities. Teacher credential information is also reported each fall as part of our school accountability report card, which was in February 2019, the most recent submission. Based on our most recent SARCs produced this past February, the district recorded 0 employees who were misassigned, but 14 teachers who were working outside of their fully credentialed area. Also, we had 29 vacancies as of the last submission of our SARC in February 2019. Area 2 for the LCAP focuses on standard implementation. This area looks at how well we are implementing state curriculum standards. To gather information on the progress toward meeting this curriculum standard, we administered the CDE Standard Implementation Survey in the summer of 2019. The survey tool uses a Likert scale ranging from 1 to 5 to self-assess our progress across domains with respect to standards implementation, including professional learning across core curricular areas, instructional materials aligned to adopted academic standards, implementation of policies to support sites in identifying areas of needed improvement, implementation of other academic standards, and professional learning of teachers and administrators. The results from the survey were mixed, as a greater percentage of respondents rated the district as fully implementing instructional materials aligned to core academic standards. Conversely, a percentage of respondents who felt the district was fully implementing support to meet professional learning needs of teachers did take a noticeable decline. Professional learning is widely recognized as a key lever in teaching and learning. Apart from professional learning around the new adoption, however, district-based professional learning was indeed low, due in large part to funding concerns.
Good evening. The next two slides, we are going to review the CDE Self-Reflection Tool and Engagement Tool Survey. It's important to note when the district received the self-reflection tool from CDE, our district, along with many others throughout the state, understood this to be a mandated survey. It was a bit cumbersome. The return rates were low. We've since learned from CDE that they would like districts to design their own, which is will increase our response rate. But we did want to take that as a learning. And so what we've seen in the results in the survey that there's an indicated need for increased parent empowerment, professional development for school site staff and district staff. And while we have limited access to provide PD, we do want to use this growth opportunity to find creative ways to provide that. Our current practice is we provide one-on-one and small group training for site parent engagement staff, like parent advisors, the parent-teacher home visits, academic parent-teacher teams, staff training on cultural competency. We also teach our families cultural competency, and cross-department collaboration to support parent engagement. Our growth opportunity would be to focus group our principals, our site staff, and our parents to determine specific site needs and to establish effective strategies on site for parent engagement, and then using that information with our parents' input and participation, design and deliver parent engagement training for staff conducted by parents. The second piece was really showing an indication of a need for improved communication about available practices and activities. While we did have 2,770 parents attend trainings provided by our department last year, there's always room for improvement. Our current practice would be our Parent Leadership Pathway Workshop series at sites, our College Pathways workshops, which commercials start next week, Parent Information Exchange monthly luncheons, which bring parents and community-based partners together to break bread and to learn together, the development of parent resource centers at school sites, our parent-teacher home visit program, to ensure that translation services and childcare are available for our parents at all meetings and trainings, cross-department collaboration to provide training and informational materials in understandable and accessible language for our parents and families, and a collaboration with community-based partners to provide services supporting our students and families' growth and success. Our growth opportunities would be to develop a new language-friendly, parent-friendly engagement survey tool for more participation, to develop our Parent Ambassador Program, which is a parent-to-parent outreach initiative that we're starting in pilot at Leotata Floyd this year, to ensure that specific parent engagement programs are included in sites' parent engagement policies and called out, to ensure that our sites are spending at least 1% of their Title I funds for parent empowerment, to coordinate parent engagement activities across programs, and to assess the effectiveness of school, family, and community partnerships at each site.
To inform LCAP Priority Area 6 around school climate, our district annually administers a school climate survey. This past spring, more than 15,000 students in grades 3 through 12 participated in this survey, and this is a notable increase from the 13,000, approximately 300 students who took the survey last year, 2017-18. As we further reviewed our school climate survey results by respondent, ethnicity, and race, we noticed that the trend results were mixed across various student groups, with students trending more positively in one area in many cases and less positively in another. In some cases, however, the results were much more definitive. For example, a greater percentage of students who self-identified as American Indian or Alaska Native responded more positively to the survey as to student connectedness and safety. Conversely, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander students indicated they felt less positive in both of these domains as opposed to their responses from the 2018 survey. We also reviewed our school climate data for students included in the Federal Asian subgroup by specific Asian origin. Results for Cambodian students were less positive in both reviewed domains than they were in the previous administration of the survey. However, we did see an uptick in how Vietnamese students felt about their ability to connect to and the safety of their learning environments. Finally, our review of school climate data focused on students by their program participation. While results were mixed for socioeconomic disadvantage and foster youth, our review found that students who received English learner, special education, and homeless services responded more positively to their connectedness and safety items on our 2018-19 survey than in the previous survey. The district's social and emotional learning department used the results from surveys like these to identify the type of trends in our school and also help to guide their work.
And although this work is compliant in nature, I think the most important piece is where are the opportunities for growth when we are completely focused on improving the academic achievement for all of our students. As we look at priority 7, course access, we're looking at the measure to the extent to which our students have access to a broad course of study. And our evidence pieces include our CTE enrollment by student group, as well as AP enrollment and A through G on track status. If we look at this slide presents our students' access to high quality and rigorous coursework as measured by participation in CTE courses, AP courses, and A through G on-track status. You can see that 23% of high school students in the 18-19 school year were enrolled in a CTE pathway. 20% of students were involved in AP coursework, and then we had 56% of students who were A through G on track. This shows that we are providing and offering an opportunity for rigorous coursework and that our students are consistently moving toward preparedness for sustained academic supports. What we need to be able to do is ensure that we can provide increased access through the work that we're doing in our supports so that we can see more students with availability and access so that we can fulfill the promise that all students are given the equal opportunity to graduate with the most post-secondary choices with the widest array of options. We also wanted to share with you a slide from a piece of our PATI and looking at some of our local indicators, first being the 9 through 12 graduation on track status. It's important to know that if you go into this tool, every single one of the students, GATE students, students that have special education needs, students who are learning English, every single student becomes a visible student in every one of these areas. We also monitor locally the 9th through 12th graders who are on track for graduation retention if we apply interventions to ensure that kids are continuing down this path. And we also look for students who are off track so that we can move in and apply interventions. Those 3 indicators are local indicators that we can look at in our performance and targeted action index. One of the indicators that's also a dashboard indicator is our CDE reported graduation rate. Whoops. And all this leading to college and career readiness. And you can see that in 1819, we had 40 and 0.43% of our students who were college and career ready. And then we wanted to provide, when we're looking at the foundations to create conditions for success for all of our students, as this pulls together and starts to wrap up that piece up, when we look at college and career ready, what does that mean? What are the components of being college and career ready? And that includes our Smarter Balance assessments, our state seal of biliteracy, participation in IB exams, as well as advanced placement exams, as well as other markers as we continue to move toward foundations to create conditions for success for all of our students.
So in wrapping up the presentation this evening, just want to highlight a few key next steps. One, of course, is tonight, the board adoption of the local indicators so that we can achieve the MET rating by November 1st. And then early December, we're hoping for, we'll actually have the release of the California dashboard. So we'll actually be able to see not just these local indicators, but of course the high stakes, very important outcome measures that the state declares for all of our students. And then finally, this is really important as well, this is a process. And so we actually will be bringing back a variation of some of the engagement items that we shared with you this evening in conjunction with our LCAP adoption process, as the state has now requested that districts at least take at least 2 times a year to review and accordingly analyze the data as it relates to some of the engagement items that we shared with you this evening. With that, I'll end the presentation and turn it back to the board.
Thank you, Vincent. I think that given I didn't participate in the conversation earlier around how time was going to be allocated, what I'm going to ask that we do is just set the clock for 10 minutes board conversation. And I'm hoping that board members can regulate themselves with asking questions so that we'll all have an opportunity to speak within that allotted time. I think that probably makes more sense in terms of ensuring there's a good flow. So we have a beginning question or comment from board member Ang Olson.
Thank you. Okay, so starting on the priority 7 course axis, you talked about having a broad course of study, and then on the priority elements of like shows for preparedness and academic success. And when they say things like, or when you have things like AP exams and IB scores as proof of a student's academic preparedness and success, I like to stress also the importance of having advanced courses that do not have the AP label. In recent years, we've seen the narrowing of course selection to where we have like the general requirements in like A through G credit courses. And then the only things that are left are the AP courses, which leave out things like advanced biology, honors courses, which when we're striving to have a broad course selection that should be fitting all students of different levels, when you take out those kind of middle tier courses and you leave only AP courses and general courses, it leaves a gap for which probably the main bulk of students lie. So I mentioned this in a student board report a couple board meetings ago, and I just like to stress that again, how important that is, and I know that's something that a lot of students have been complaining about as well.
Thank you, board member Ang Olson. Excellent points. Do we have any other questions or comments from board members? Board member Morawski.
Thank you. I had a question, a couple of questions. On slide 3, I wanted to hear more about the teacher credentials, just what that really means, misassignments, teaching outside subject area of competence, and vacancies, and just a little more about the timing of when that is looked at. And also on page 7, I'm interested in hearing a little more about the development of parent resource centers. Is that something that's ongoing now? Does that happen across the district?
So I can take the first question. In regard to the reporting of the timing for misassignments, we typically follow the SARC reporting process because the SARC each year report in February. So the most recent one was February 2019. As part of that SARC, we reported the quote-unquote 2017-18 SARC. And I say quote-unquote is because the state, even though it's the 2017-18 SARC, calls for the credential information out of that fall. So even though the SARC period was for the year ending June 2018, they request to be included the 18-19 teacher credential information, so that's the timing of it. And so the next SARC report would be in February 2020, which will include the fall teacher credential information as of now that we're gathering right now for this fall.
Oh, I see. Okay. And just what do those mean?
So misassignments?
Outside of, misassignments, teaching outside subject area of competence, and is that a number for the whole district, just 14? And vacancies, is that just a point in time as well?
So vacancies are a point in time. We're actually in ongoing communications with the CDE in terms of ensure that we all have a collective understanding of misassignments. We are just on the actual conference call yesterday because there is some ambiguity in Ed Code 33126. And so misassignments, we're working that out with the state right now. So that's why on our report, we ensured that we took a conservative route, because in some cases, it's not clear if teachers working outside their subject area are misassigned. In some districts, they're reporting that way. Some districts are not. And so we're actually getting an opinion from the state in terms of what is the statewide guidance from that.
And the teaching outside subject area of competence?
So for example, a teacher can have an English credential. And if a teacher has an English credential, but they're working in a social science, that would be considered teaching outside their fully credentialed area. They are fully credentialed in English, but they may be teaching in social science. That would be an example of a teaching outside their subject area of competence.
And when would we see that?
When would we see that? High school?
So there may be, we don't want to see that, but in cases where that happened, there may be a teacher in the example that Ed used that's hired as an English teacher and has a credential and may end up teaching one segment, one section, one period of something else, social science, let's say, for example. We would need to go through if that was going to be something that was going to continue on and get that individual some sort of additional credential to be able to teach that. But that's an example, right? If they're hired in one area, but they end up doing something else for even one period, then that's technically outside of their credential area.
Thank you.
Speaking to the parent resource centers, we do offer that service. We actually use an organizing model with parents, so they are the lead in the design of the centers. At one point, we had 47 centers district-wide due to class size reduction, and we've lost space. I will be honest. Some schools had to use the space that was given to us for classroom, but that is an option for any school.
Board Member Garcia?
Yeah, just one quick question on priority number 7, access to broad course of study. So I see that you're tracking enrollment to increase access. Are we also tracking completion?
Absolutely. I mean, as we talked about the nature of the Performance and Target Action Index, this is definitely meant to holistically, totally to your question, speak to the notion of students who are on track, their retention rate, which speaks to their ability to continue completing coursework. And then I really will make mention to your point, this notion of off track to on track. So even to the degree that we have students who potentially are not tracking as appropriately, we're measuring that whole segment of students. So not just those who are retained, but actually going after students who potentially are off track. So we're definitely looking at that holistic notion of not just enrollment, but who are completers. Because summatively, obviously, our high stakes dashboard measures require us to have completers. So absolutely, and we're looking at that by grade level.
And by student group?
Oh, absolutely, by student group. All the student groups that the Chief Academic Officer BA spoke to, and of course, every type of student group that's available to us to track.
Okay, and then one last question on, I think it was slide 7. And on the growth opportunity examples is ensuring that sites are spending at least 1% of their Title I dollars. What is it that you're finding right now, that they're not spending up to 1% or that Title I dollars are not being spent?
That is a part of ESSA. So ESSA
Right.
requires that any Title I school actually allocate 1% of their funds to parent involvement. And so it should be according to their family involvement policy, which is approved by the school site council.
Right, I understand that technical part, but I'm wondering sort of in terms of practice, because it could be allocated, but it could not be expended,
Utilized.
right? So it's how are they not utilizing the allocation Because that's required by ESSA.
It is a requirement, yes.
So-
And so we really just want to ensure when we are tracking our school site council minutes that there is a conversation documented in that school site council minutes and those school site council minutes specifically about that 1% so that we can begin to track how our school sites are utilizing that money.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple quick questions and comments. On page 7, as you're talking about building partnerships with families and students to increase student outcomes, you list out 2,770 parents engaged through these various workshops and trainings. One, I'm interested if you have an individual breakdown in the number of parents and community members who attended, say, college pathways workshops over parent information exchange monthly workshops. I think that would be very helpful as we figure out, where are parents more interested in going and why, and then how do we grow that? And I also wanted to ask, do you tape those so that there's an opportunity for families who are unable to attend? For instance, with the PIE, I hear that the lunchtime hour works for some, but not for a lot of working families. Is there an opportunity to tape and post those online?
That's a great suggestion. We have not done that, but we can pursue it.
Okay, that would be one suggestion I would make. On slide 9, you have the data, disaggregated data on school climate and ethnicity and race. One of my concerns is with the positive responses and the increases in connectedness or safety, is there any sort of follow-up around qualitative research so that we know more than a percentage of what that means? Checking that more students feel safer, that they feel more connected. Do they then have an opportunity to expand in their answers so that we understand why are they feeling more connected? Why do they feel more safe?
So ultimately in the survey, the instrument itself, of course, is fixed, but this gets back to the point of our social emotional learning team doing its work with sites. And so I'd say that happens more through the site interaction with staff. I'll actually defer to Mr. Turkey if he thinks there's anything else I should add there, but does that seem complete enough, Matt?
I think it would be really helpful to have a sense of some of the responses from students around how they are categorizing a feeling of greater connectedness. And then my final question and comment is looking at slide 14, where we talk about the priority elements and the increase in on-track and college readiness rates. I really would like to be able to see alongside some of these indicators, disaggregated data for the number of students completing AP exams, disaggregated data for the increase in IB program students with a score of 4 or higher in A through G as well, so that we understand, who are the students who are benefiting the most? And if there is disproportionality, how do we address that?
Right. And as the board seen prior presentations on the Performance Target Action Index, we do have tabs that do that type of disaggregation, so we can definitely provide that data.
Great. Do we have any other comments or board member questions? Okay.
We have public comments.
Thank you. How many public comments do we have at this time?
2 comments, one from Liz Guillen and one from Cecile Nunley.
Is it 1, 2?
2 minutes.
2
Yes.
minutes. Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent, and board members. I'm Liz Guillen with Public Advocates. On this item, I really appreciate the district's staff's going beyond compliance. And the fact that the memo is really clear about how important this information is really a good thing. In terms of some of the local indicators, first of all, we know that the state standard is really low to meet, right? All you have to do is collect something and report it to you. And the purpose of having this public hearing is so that you can try to improve the measures and connect it to the academic outcomes. I wanted to remind the board that in the prior 2 discussions around the SROs, those questions about students feeling safe and connected, in relationship to law enforcement and SROs. I understood we're going to be part of the next survey. So I'm just wanting to remind people about that. And in terms of the instrument for parent engagement or parent and family engagement, the department's instructions say that districts should engage parents about what data they should use to make these ratings. So it's another opportunity to get at what really matters. And I recommend that, we have always recommended that the data that is used to measure whether, where you are in the ratings, that be determined based on a community stakeholder process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gann. Ms. Nunley?
I was just looking at slide 13, actually, the one just before this one, and as I started to notice things, one of the things that really jumped out was some of the problems that we've continually been seeing, in particular with regards to the African American youth. You see in CTE they're at 15%, but then when you hit AP, they automatically go down to 7%. And then A through G on track status is only at 11%, which these are some of the numbers and some of the things that we were concerned about and really tackling in the African American Task Force. And of course, that's just one group. And then something that was pointed out to me as I was also sitting there was foster youth and homeless are even lower. For AP, they're at 0%, and A through G, there is no percent because it's just so tiny. And it's really concerning because we still have those same issues that need to be addressed and dealt with. And this is the latest data. So that's just last year. From everything that I'm reading here is CalPATS.
Thank you, Ms. Nunley. Do we have any other public comments on this item?
No.
Okay, this isn't Superintendent Aguilar.
Thank you, President Ryan. I want to just take a moment and thank our staff, all of you, for putting this presentation together. Ms. Guillen mentioned exactly what I've been thinking about, and that is the value of taking something that is so compliance-oriented and finding a way to remind us all of how you can create a through line back to student achievement. And I want to just commend the staff for doing that. We have, for the past couple of years, made a commitment to have virtually every board meeting contain a presentation on student achievement. And I really appreciate your commitment to figure out how we took something that is very compliance-oriented and tied it to student achievement. And it reminded me of sort of the stake that we put on the ground several board meetings ago when members of our LCAP PAC came and said, we know what our problem of practice is. We know why we have not focused on student achievement, and specifically called out the role of politics in trumping student achievement. And I think that it's really, really important for all of us in this room to create a collective accountability for holding all of us accountable for always seeing and creating a through line to student achievement. And where there are forces and behaviors that hinder that, then we have to call them out. And on that note, I do want to make sure that you as our community hear that what we heard at the last board meeting in terms of district behavior, specifically our chief of communications, that is behavior that hinders a focus on student achievement. But we also have to keep in mind that those hindrances apply to our entire educational community. And that so long as we are in a space where we disregard student achievement, we will never transform Sac City as a high poverty, low performing school district into what I think our community deserves. I travel as much as I can throughout this city, and we owe it to at least 72% of our community, those who are low income, those who are ELs, those who are foster, those who are homeless, that we focus a great deal of attention on student achievement. I will tell you that in the 2+ years that I've been here, I have yet to focus the majority of my capital energy on student achievement. And I owe it to our board, I owe it to our community that we reverse that very quickly here. We received the last CAS scores. They should not make us proud at all. We have been reminded by community after community that they are not satisfied with the low academic achievement that we are producing. Our core value statement talks about how our system was designed to produce inequitable results, and we talk about it proudly. When I present that core value at any event, virtually, people get up with their phones and take pictures of it because of the boldness in that language. And yet I feel like we have to constantly remind ourselves that that is the one thing that you ought to hold me accountable for, increasing student achievement. So let's pay more attention to what our community has called out as our problem of practice and recommit to resetting this system that we control. We can do better. It's time for us to do better. So thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Aguilar. This is an item for action. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Student preferential vote? All those in favor? Aye. The motion carries. Item 11.0, consent agenda. Do we have a motion to move the consent agenda? Do we have a second? Second. All, student preferential vote? Yes. All those in favor? Aye. Item 12.0, business and financial information reports. Receive item 12.1, purchase order board report for the period of August 15th, 2019 through September 14th, 2019 from Rose Ramos. The report on contracts with expenditure limitations specified in section PC 20111 for July 1st through August 31st of 2019. And we have our future board meeting dates and locations. Our next board meeting will be held on November 7th with closed session at 4:30 p.m., open session beginning at 6 p.m. at the Cerna Center. And rather than take a motion for adjournment, because we're actually going back into closed session, I did want to give Board Member Pritchett an opportunity. Oh, did we just, Lisa, did you just light up your?
I wanted to ask if we could adjourn in memory, but we're not adjourned.
Actually, Christina also did. Is it for Manny Hernandez?
No.
Okay. So we have two requests to adjourn in the memory of individuals lost over the course of the last week. While we are not adjourning, rather going back into closed session, I want to allow you each a moment to share your reflections on the loss.
Thank you, President Ryan. Since we're not adjourning, I won't adjourn it in memory, but I do want to recognize that this week we lost a longtime community activist and leader in our district, Mr. Manuel Hernandez, who was a school board member from 1996 to 2008 and will be deeply lost.
Wow. 11 years of service. That's remarkable. Go ahead, Member Marowski.
Thank you very much. It's very fresh in my mind. So I did want to take a moment to recognize Congressman Elijah Cummings, who is a true American hero. He will be greatly missed. I think he just demonstrates so many of the traits that we all need to see in ourselves and in those around us: compassion, strength, a commitment to public service, intellect, character. I mean, I could go on. He always seemed to go high when other people went low. And given our recent focus on attendance, I wanted to share a quick anecdote I read today about what he was told from his father and how much they valued education, that the only reason that he would be absent is if he died the day before. So I thought, well, that's
my
pretty
goodness.
extreme. But that just goes to show you, how much he valued education. And just so I wanted to recognize Representative Cummings. Rest in power.
Thank you, Member Morowski. We will adjourn back into closed session.